Hi guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel. In this video, we are going to show you Top 10 History Tour of Lower Manhattan, New York City. Let's start the video. New York City's modernity makes it difficult to imagine a time when it was anything but a land of skyscrapers, subways, and gridlock. But its origins are indeed humble. To properly explore the city's roots, one must start with its nexus. Lower Manhattan. NYC was built from the southern tip up. A walking tour of Lower Manhattan is refreshingly rambling, as its narrow streets predate the grid system imposed on the remainder of the island starting in the early 1800s. Consider the following a best-of history guide for the next time you're in the Big Apple. Number 10. Collect Pond. The area currently occupied by Chinatown's Columbus Park sits atop what was once Lower Manhattan's primary source of freshwater. The, eventually, aptly named Collect Pond. Before the Europeans, the now extinct Lenape Native Americans had a settlement along its shoreline. In the 1540s, the French established a fortified trading post on one of its lush islands. Starting in the early 18th century, the British used the pond alternately as a summer picnic spot and a winter skating rink. Around this time, however, Collect Pond took a turn for the well, gross. A number of tanneries moved into the area. Mulberry Street, which overlooked the pond, became known as Slaughterhouse Street. By the 1800s, Collect Pond had collected enough waste that it was deemed a very sink and common sewer. Number 9. The Five Points Slums. Built partially on land filled in overfed Collect Pond and famously depicted in Martin Scorsese's epic 2002 film Gangs of New York, the Five Points was loosely bound by Center Street to the west, the Bowery to the east, Canal Street to the north, and Park Row to the south. The neighborhood's name derives from a star-like confluence of two crossing streets and a third that terminates at their intersection, forming points. Those thoroughfares were Anthony Street, now Worth, Cross Street, now Moscow, and Orange Street, now Baxter. This guide shows its approximate location today. Number 8. Castle Clinton. Before Ellis Island, there was Castle Clinton, the nation's first official immigration processing center. The castle was first constructed due to the growing tensions between the United States and Britain in the early 19th century. The 28-cannon fort, which was garrisoned but never saw action during the ensuing War of 1812, occupied what was then an artificial island off Manhattan's southern tip. The locale has a dark legacy. After the Lenape Native Americans refused to pay Dutch settlers taxes in the 1640s, the governor decided that a fitting penalty was slaughtering every man, woman, and child. And decorating Castle Clinton's predecessor, Fort Amsterdam, with their heads. Number 7. Fraunces Tavern. Up for a pint? Duck into the oldest bar in New York City. Fraunces Tavern at 54 Pearl Street. Constructed in 1719, the watering hole carries the name of Samuel Fraunces, who operated the establishment as the Queen's Head Tavern during the 18th century. During the Revolutionary War, Fraunces and his tavern were part of aspiring undermining the British occupation of New York. The British held New York for nearly the entire war, necessitating an intricate web of espionage and sabotage, terrifically depicted in the TV series Turn. Washington's Spies. Number 6. The African Slave Trade and Burial Grounds. Although slavery is typically more associated with the U.S. South, New York City was the second largest slave-owning city in the British colonies in America in the mid-18th century. Charleston, South Carolina, was the biggest. Ironically, and tragically, most of the macabre buying and selling of human beings transpired at a street now synonymous with commerce. Wall Street. At 74 Wall Street, a 42-story building housing luxury condominiums, rests over what was once New York's primary slave market. The peculiar institution's history in New York is as old as the city itself. The first slaves arrived in New Amsterdam in 1626, just 2 years after the Dutch settled there. Slave labor was instrumental in building defensive structures for the small, vulnerable European population, including the wall for which the modern street is named. Number 5. City Hall Park. The grassy grounds surrounding New York City Hall represent perhaps the only sizable patch of land in Lower Manhattan never to be fully developed. The original Dutch settlers used the area as a public commons. The space took a darker turn when the British seized the colony in 1664 and hosted public executions. More death and despair followed. In 1775, the British began work on a prison named Bridewell. Soon, the American Revolution broke out in full force, giving the Redcoats more pressing priorities than proper penitentiaries. The unfinished building, which even lacked window panes to protect from bitter cold winters, was a pit of suffering and death for hundreds of POWs until the war's conclusion. In the years immediately preceding the war, the grounds became a popular spot for liberty poles erected to inspire insurrectionist spirits and often to signal covert conventions of anti-British conspirators. An 18th-century game of whack-a-mole ensued, with pro-independence groups like the Sons of Liberty putting poles up as fast as British soldiers could chop them down. Number 4. The Catacombs at Old St. Patrick's Cathedral. The most famous burial ground in Lower Manhattan is undoubtedly the graveyard at Trinity Church at the intersection of Wall Street and Broadway. The cramped site is the final resting place of several famous figures, most notably Alexander Hamilton. However, another gravesite offers a much more immersive experience. At Old St. Patrick's Church in modern-day Soho, far humbler confines than the current polished behemoth in Midtown, visitors can tour catacombs where the city's wealthier Catholic residents sealed themselves for all eternity. Both the catacombs and the high wall in the adjacent church graveyard were intended to prevent something widespread in 19th-century Lower Manhattan: grave robbing. Understandably, avoiding post-death looting took some, well, loot, a price point that limited the catacombs to especially prominent New Yorkers. Several members of the Delmonico restaurant family are there, as is the man credited with bringing opera to Nick. Number 3. Mob hit hunting in Little Italy. Despite being a shell of its former self, its footprint has been severely compacted by Chinatown from the south and Nolita from the north, and its restaurants are now mostly tourist traps. Little Italy is still a great place to see where some high-profile mafiosi got whacked. At the famed Umberto's Clam House at 132 Mulberry Street, Colombo crime family hitman Crazy Joe Gallo was enjoying dinner with his family, including his 10-year-old daughter. The date was April 7, 1972, Gallo's birthday. Sometime during his second helping of shrimp and scungilli, not a bad choice for a last meal, gunmen entered the restaurant and opened fire. The shooting marked the first time a mobster was murdered in front of his family, so he must have made someone really mad. Number 2. The city's oldest sites. New York is a city where the only thing constant is change. In fact, only one structure remains from the 1600s, its first century of European inhabitation: a cemetery. Coincidentally, it is the final resting place of the city's first Jewish settlers. In modern-day Chinatown, the site holds 107 graves with headstones that have remained surprisingly legible. The cemetery was used at least through the American Revolution, as it includes the remains of several fallen soldiers. The oldest surviving building is the aforementioned Frunze's Tavern, but many historians discount this distinction due to its series of renovations. The title of oldest original building goes to St. Paul's Chapel, which dates to 1764. The house of worship includes a pew where George Washington prayed on the day of his presidential inauguration. Number 1. Chinatown. Chinatown is the only substantial ethnic neighborhood remaining in Manhattan. Others like African American Harlem, Latino Washington Heights, and especially Little Italy have long been whittled away by gentrification. For first-time visitors, Chinatown is simultaneously inviting and intimidating. Decrepit yet delicious dumpling houses, Eastern medicine pharmacies showcasing vast rows of herbal remedies, shops brazenly peddling dubiously authentic clothing and handbags, and cavernous dim sum restaurants including the 800-seat soccer pitch-sized Jingfeng line, the narrow, typically crowded streets. All this is for today's video. Hope so you enjoyed it. Your likes, comments and shares are appreciable for us. And don't forget to subscribe our channel for such more videos. Thank you.